She was just the prison psychologist, until she fell for the man everyone believed was beyond redemption. Her days were spent listening to confessions, men locked away for crimes that all sounded the same, only the names and dates ever changed. She'd learned to recognize fear by the way someone breathed, guilt by the weight in their voice, and lies by the silence that stretched too long. But what struck her most was the emptiness. That strange calm that comes after the disaster, when there's nothing left to defend. At the end of every shift, she left through the same door, always to the metallic clank of the gate locking behind her. Outside, the air felt heavier. The sky, always the same shade of gray. The wind, always carrying that same scent of rust and rain. She'd light a cigarette and watch the smoke rise, the only free movement she saw all day. The thing about listening to confessions every day is that eventually you start wanting to confess too. But no one ever asks how the listener feels. They expect you to understand, to assess, to classify, to be stone while someone else crumbles. And Laura was good at that, listening without letting anything in, or at least she thought she was. The next morning, something felt different in the corridor. Silent guards, measured steps, glances exchanged. A new inmate had arrived, the kind of man the prison swallows but never digests. His name was Daniel Faria, a teacher, 42, convicted of murder. The victim, one of his students. The motive, never explained. They said the case had been buried, that the boy's father was someone important, and that Daniel spoke too much for a man the world wanted silent. When Laura saw him for the first time, she understood the silence of the guards. He didn't look like the man from the headlines. His gaze was calm, deliberate. His expression didn't ask for forgiveness. She greeted him with the usual formality. He nodded slightly, never breaking eye contact. The first questions were routine: name, age, prior offenses, mental state. His answers were brief, direct, unhesitating. But there was something in his pauses that unsettled her, as if the words were only there to distract from what he truly wanted to say. "Why are you here?" she asked. "Because they sent me." "That's not what I asked." He held her gaze. "You want me to confess. I want you to speak. And what if what I say doesn't fit into your report? Then it stays between us." He let out a soft laugh, without irony. No one believes what can't be measured. The clock in the room marked time in long intervals. Laura kept writing, though she wasn't sure what for. At the end of the session, as she gathered her notes, he said, "You listen to everyone. But who listens to you?" She didn't answer. She closed the folder and left without looking back. But the sound of that question followed her all the way to the gate, and when it slammed shut, it sounded louder than usual. That night, at home, she opened his file. The cold, impersonal pages smelled of fresh paper and old fear. The crime details, the reports, the witness accounts, they were all there. But none of it explained his eyes. She closed the file and stood still, watching the shadow of the lamp tremble against the wall. For the first time in years, she couldn't sleep. For weeks, Laura tried to keep her distance. It was what she knew how to do: listen, record, feel nothing. But Daniel's face kept returning at random moments, the way he tilted his head before answering, his steady gaze that didn't intimidate but disarmed. There was something about him that escaped the category of patient. She told herself it was professional curiosity, a clinical challenge, nothing more. The sessions grew longer. Daniel spoke little but with precision. With every sentence, he seemed to weigh each word carefully, as if he understood their weakness. He spoke about time. What time does to men, what time does to the truth. "After a few years in here," he once said, "people stop telling what happened. They start telling what they can endure." Laura kept writing, but as the days passed, she stopped. She noticed that when the recorder was off, he spoke differently, calmer, less guarded. As if he could only truly exist outside the record, she began listening differently, with her body, with her silence, the sound of his breath, the pause between sentences, the way he looked down when remembering the past. All of it became part of the conversation. Words were only the surface. The truth, if it existed, lived in what was left unsaid. One afternoon, a storm shattered the routine. The power outage hit suddenly. Lights flickered across the clinical wing, and the usual prison noises multiplied. Footsteps, locks, long echoes. Laura was with Daniel when the lights went out completely. For a moment, the silence was absolute. Then came voices in the corridor, confusion, the distant clang of metal doors. She waited for someone to open the room, but time passed and no one came. The darkness felt thick, almost solid. She heard Daniel rise, the scrape of his chair across the floor. "Don't come any closer," she said, louder than she meant to. "Easy, I'm just here." His voice in the dark had a different weight. Without the glass, without the light's reflection, he was closer than he should have been. Laura backed up until she touched the wall. "Are you afraid?" he asked. "It's not fear, it's caution." Caution is just another name for fear. "And what do you feel?" "Relief." "Why?" "Because in the dark, we're all the same." The words hung in the air. She didn't know how to answer. The rain hammered the roof and the sound seemed to come from inside the room itself. For several minutes they said nothing, just listened to the rain and their breathing. When the lights returned, he was already seated again, hands on the table, expression serene. No gesture, no trace of provocation. Only his eyes, now clearer than before. Laura gathered her papers with trembling hands. "The session's over," she said. That was the best one yet. That night she didn't go home. She stayed in her car parked in the lot, watching the prison lights flicker in the distance. She felt something had shifted, though she couldn't explain what. The work, once predictable, now pulsed with something else. As if Daniel had crossed an invisible line, from subject of study to presence. In the days that followed, his demeanor changed. He spoke more, but never about the crime. He described his dreams, the same ones again and again, empty rooms, a river running through a building, voices speaking from behind walls. "Maybe the unconscious has bars too," she said, almost absently. "Or maybe the bars are in the one who's listening," he replied. She wrote it down without knowing why. It wasn't analysis, it was echo, and she could feel herself beginning to hear her own voice differently. One morning, while reviewing reports, she noticed his name scribbled in the margins, on the sides in blank spaces over and over again. She didn't remember writing it. Maybe it was automatic, unconscious. Maybe it was her body's way of confessing what her mind was trying to hide. Laura began arriving earlier. She told herself it was to maintain control, but in truth, it was the opposite. She wanted to get lost a little. In those quiet minutes before the sessions began, when the corridor was still empty, she breathed a different kind of air. Air with no witnesses. And when he entered, there was always a brief pause between them. A silence where nothing needed to be said, and yet everything was already happening. From that point on, the meetings stopped being clinical. She began to notice the effect of his voice in her own thoughts. At night, his words returned in fragments, blended with hers. It was as if the dialogue continued, even when he wasn't there. And it was in that silent frequency that the transformation began. Slow, without gesture, without declaration. Just the quiet realization that something inside the prison breathed differently. Something that didn't fit into reports or regulations. Something that wasn't called compassion, or pity, or empathy. It was just the beginning. The weeks turned into months, and time inside the prison began to flow differently. Outside, the seasons changed. Inside, everything felt still, suspended in air. The routine stayed the same, but Daniel's presence had quietly shifted something, a subtle detour in the way Laura moved through that space. She no longer saw the days as repetitive blocks. There was anticipation now, an inner stirring that no longer aligned with the discipline that once governed her. She began noticing details that never used to exist for her. The sound of the gate opening in the morning, the pale light threading through the corridor bars, the metallic scent in the air on rainy afternoons. Every noise seemed to signal the possibility of a meeting. Daniel had changed too. The guards said he'd grown quieter, more open. He participated in activities, spoke to the other inmates, read less. Maybe because their conversations were occupying him more. During sessions, the formality had faded. She called him by his name, he still called her doctor, but the tone had changed. There was a restrained familiarity, a trust without illusions. He had started writing, short pieces, fragments, reflections. Every now and then he'd hand her a page at the end of a session. No explanations, no comments. She read them at night, under the soft light of her lamp, with the reverence of someone reading a secret. One of them read, "People think prisons are made of iron, but what really holds us captive are the memories of who we were when we were free." Another, "The doctor asks what I feel. I should say fear. But fear is just the name we give when something inside us wants to come back to life." Laura began locking those pages in a drawer. She knew she shouldn't keep them, but she couldn't throw them away either. There was a kind of truth in them that no report required, yet somehow explained what was shifting inside her. Rumors began circulating in the hallways. Colleagues' eyes shifted when she walked past. Guards whispered when she entered the wing. One of them, bolder than the rest, said one morning, "Careful, Doc." She looked at him. With what? With him. Why? Because he knows how to use what people feel. Laura answered calmly, "That's called intelligence," and walked away. But the words lingered, like a warning the body understands even when the mind refuses. One afternoon, the director called her in, a rigid man, shaped by order and hierarchy. His office smelled of cigarettes and old paper. He didn't smile. "I've been hearing things about you and inmate Faria." Things. Sessions running too long, delayed reports. Clinical work takes time. Clinical work, doctor, isn't emotional involvement. Laura didn't answer. He went on, "This man killed someone. He's a manipulator. Have you read the case file?" "I don't need to." "Then maybe you should." The director studied her, her tone, her eyes. "You're confusing empathy with redemption. And you're confusing justice with convenience." She left without waiting for a response. She knew she had crossed a line, but it didn't matter anymore. There was something inside her that no longer fit within obedience. That night it rained. The city blurred under the sound of water and passing cars. Laura stayed late in her office, reviewing old reports. She found the first one she'd written on Daniel months ago. Reading her own words felt strange. His words are calculated, cold, manipulative. Now it all sounded false, as if she'd been describing a different man. She opened one of the pages he had given her. A new text, unsigned. "Truth is dangerous not because it wounds, but because it changes who we believe we are." She read the sentence over and over until it was etched in her memory. And then she realized she no longer knew who was being analyzed, him or her. A few days later, during a session, Daniel said, "The guards are talking about you. They talk about everyone, but not everyone with such insistence." "What are they saying?" "That I made you forget what's right. And what is right? What others say it is." She looked at him. There was a trace of irony in his face, but also compassion. "Do you believe me?" he asked. "I haven't decided yet. What if I told you I didn't kill anyone? Would that change everything?" "No." "Then why ask?" "Because I want to know what happens when a woman chooses to believe someone the world has already condemned." The silence that followed lasted too long. Laura felt something stir inside her, a blend of guilt and clarity. She knew she was already in too deep, and she also knew there was no turning back. From that point on, she began reading the case file with care. She spent hours reviewing testimonies, cross-checking dates, comparing statements. She uncovered contradictions, omissions, erased details. The victim, a student, came from an influential family. His father was close friends with the judge who handed down the sentence. There were too many gaps to be called oversight. She started taking notes, not for a new report but for herself. She needed to understand what lay behind that calm gaze, that unsettling serenity. Then one afternoon during a session, she said, "I read your file. And what did you think? I think there's more silence than truth. Silence is the most honest part of the story. Then why don't you speak? Because no one wants to hear." Laura replied, barely above a whisper, "I do." Daniel looked at her for a long time, saying nothing. Then he rested his hands on the table, slowly intertwining his fingers. "If I tell you, you stop being a psychologist. And what do I become? A part of the story." She held his gaze, didn't look away, didn't write. She simply waited, and he began to speak. And for the first time, she forgot what it meant to take notes. "Qu'est ce?" His voice blended with the distant sound of wind rattling the bars. The words came slowly, carefully, but carried something different than the neutrality she was used to. There was no defense, no justification, just the telling of a guilt that didn't fit into codes or classifications. And as he spoke, Laura realized that what bound her to him was not pity. It was recognition, because deep down, she too lived surrounded by walls. The only difference was, hers were invisible. Daniel's confession didn't come all at once. It came in fragments, like someone slowly reopening a wound, unsure whether they want to heal it or simply remember it exists. Laura didn't interrupt. She just listened as if each pause were a kind of breath. He told her about the student, a 17-year-old boy from a wealthy family, the kind of young man used to being admired. Said the boy would approach him after class, eager to learn more, asking for book recommendations, seeking conversation. For a while, Daniel believed it was genuine. Then came the notes, the messages, the invitations, with words that couldn't be spoken aloud. At first, Daniel ignored them, but silence, when repeated, is mistaken for consent, and the situation slipped out of control. The boy threatened him, claimed he had proof, said he'd make up whatever was needed and that no one would question his word. By the time the father found out, the story was already written, and Daniel never had the chance to tell it in his own words. No one wanted to listen. He was sentenced based on the most convenient version. Laura listened without saying a word. His voice was low but steady, and the calm with which he recounted it all disturbed her. There was no anger, no self-pity. Just the quiet realization that sometimes words lose their power when spoken to those who've already made up their minds. At the end, he said, "I didn't kill him, doctor, but I didn't save him either, and that maybe is worse." The sentence lingered, as if it echoed beyond the room. Laura felt it like a verdict. Something inside her had shifted. It wasn't belief, it wasn't doubt. It was the recognition of ambiguity, that precise moment where right and wrong stop being opposites. In the days that followed, the sessions changed in tone. There were no more formal questions. They talked about other things: time, books, the loneliness of those who observe too much. Daniel quoted philosophers, writers, pieces of memory. She listened, and sometimes she replied, not as a professional, but as someone finally allowing herself to exist beyond the protocol. One afternoon he asked, "Do you believe in forgiveness?" "That depends." On what? On who's asking? And on who's offering it? That's the one who needs it most. Daniel gave a faint smile. "You speak like someone who's carried guilt for a long time." She looked away. Everyone feels guilty about something. But not everyone has the courage to admit it. Laura realized she was tired of hiding behind neutrality. For years, she had lived inside a structure that demanded restraint, precision, detachment. But now, in front of that man, she began to feel the weight of always being the one who watches and never the one who feels. The one night, she stayed late at the office. Rain fell soft and steady. The prison lights flickered across the fence. She opened one of the pages Daniel had left behind. His handwriting was slanted, elegant, almost old-fashioned. On the paper, a single sentence. Those who listen too much forget the sound of their own voice. She closed her eyes for a moment, and the sentence became a memory. She remembered her early days working there, young, full of ideals about rehabilitation and justice. Over time, those ideals had become routine, and routine had become silence. Now, for the first time, she wondered who she had become. The next morning, she arrived early to the wing. The corridor was empty, the light still dim. Daniel was already waiting, seated, as if he knew she would come before time. "Didn't sleep?" he asked. "Sleep is hard when you think too much." "Or when you feel too much." Laura sat down. "You talk like you know me." "I know your kind of silence." "And what kind is that?" "The kind that learns to survive by silencing what matters." She didn't reply. The clock marked the hour of the session, but neither of them moved. Time, in that moment, felt suspended. Words no longer served a purpose. "Tasmotitius." Their meetings began to bother the others. The guards whispered. Colleagues asked veiled questions. One of them, the oldest, stopped her in the hallway. "Doctor, forgive me, but people are talking." "About me?" "About you and him." "What are they saying?" "That you care too much." Laura responded calmly, "No one should be ashamed of caring." And she kept walking, but inside, unrest was growing. She knew the line between ethics and humanity was thin, and that she had already crossed it even if no one could prove it. What was forming between them didn't fit within the rules. It wasn't romance, it wasn't compassion, it wasn't pity. It was a kind of recognition, the reflection of two solitudes that by chance had found each other. One Saturday afternoon, a fight broke out in the north wing. Screams echoed through the corridors. The alarms blared, red lights flashed. Laura was in the records room when she heard the chaos. A guard burst in, breathless. Several inmates had been injured. Daniel's name was on the list. She ran to the infirmary. He was seated, a cut on his forehead, eyes distant. When he saw her, he tried to hide the wound. "It's nothing." "What happened?" "Someone needed a reason." She grabbed a clean cloth and wiped away the blood. The guards pretended not to notice. There was something in that gesture that went far beyond professional duty. As she cleaned the wound, he murmured, "You should leave." "Why?" "Because what begins as care always ends as confession." She stopped, looked at him. "And if I don't want to leave?" He held her gaze for just a moment too long, then simply said, "Then it'll already be too late." That night, Laura sat in her car, motionless in front of the main gate. The tower lights reflected off the windshield. The alarms had gone quiet, but the noise still echoed inside her. She thought about everything she could lose: her job, her reputation, her colleagues' trust. But what truly frightened her wasn't the loss. It was realizing that none of it mattered as much as what she felt. There was no name for it. It wasn't love. It wasn't curiosity. It was a kind of liberation, born from meeting someone just as imprisoned as she was. Someone who, even behind walls, still knew how to look at the world without asking permission. And for the first time, Laura felt fear, not of Daniel, not of the prison, but of herself, of what she might be capable of when the desire to understand became a longing to touch what she'd never been allowed to reach. Those the days that followed came wrapped in a strange stillness, the kind of silence that precedes collapse, subtle, almost imperceptible, but heavy with weight. Laura kept going to the prison every morning, same path, same words, same tone, but her body no longer obeyed the rigidity the job demanded. Everything in her seemed to move under the surface, an invisible current that couldn't be explained, only felt. Daniel had been moved to the medium security wing, where cooperative inmates had more time outdoors. She saw him only twice a week, but those 2 hours were enough to unravel the rest of her week. On days without him, the prison felt louder, grayer, more real. On days with him, time stretched, as if the rest of the world had been put on hold. Their conversations shifted, Daniel began to speak of what happens to the body when time stops belonging to it. He described the sensation of having no shadow, how the silence of night in the corridors was different from the silence of early morning. Laura began to speak too, cautiously but truthfully. She told him about her father, a former cop who taught her never to show emotion, about the engagement that ended without explanation, about the constant fear of being found out, even when there was nothing to hide. He listened in silence. And it was in that absence of any gesture that their connection solidified. There was no touch, no promises, only the shared recognition of what each carried in their silence. One morning, upon arriving at the prison, Laura noticed the shift in people's eyes. The guards fell silent as she passed. The director avoided her gaze. In her office, she found the report she'd left the day before, opened, marked in red ink by someone else's hand. The words "inappropriate closeness" were circled twice. She read it and knew someone was watching. Later, the director called her in. He spoke of institutional concern, ethical conduct, misguided interpretations. Laura listened without interrupting. When he finished, she replied, "You don't understand, I'm just listening to him. That's exactly what concerns us." She left the room, feeling the weight of his gaze trailing behind her. She knew time was running out. But she also knew that what existed between her and Daniel no longer depended on time. It was an event, something that, even if interrupted, was already complete. In the next session, Daniel sensed her shift before she said a word. "They know?" he asked. "Know what?" "That you're losing yourself." Laura took a breath. "You speak like someone who knows what that means." "I do. And sometimes it's the only way to be found." She closed her notebook, abandoning protocol. "They're trying to pull me from your case. And will you let them?" "I don't know." "Then you already have." A long, tense silence followed. The sound of the clock filled the space. Daniel, without breaking eye contact, asked, "Do you believe love can happen in a place like this?" The question landed without warning. Laura felt the air thin. She didn't answer right away. For a moment, she wondered if he'd said it just to provoke her, a test, a manipulation. But his gaze was clear, direct, free of irony. "I don't know what love is," she said. "Then we're in the same place." In the days that followed, her behavior began to shift. Her colleagues noticed the missed meetings, the delayed reports, her visits to the wing at unscheduled times. Nothing explicit, nothing provable, just a series of small deviations. But in prison, small deviations attract more attention than the big ones. One night she received an anonymous call. A man's voice, rough and low, whispered, "He's using you. Everyone sees it." Laura said nothing. She hung up and stood still, the phone still in her hand, listening to the muffled thud of her own heart. It was impossible to tell whether what she felt was anger, fear, or guilt. Maybe all three. In the next session, she told Daniel about the call. He simply nodded. "It'll happen again," he said. "Why?" "Because the world fears what it can't label. There's nothing between us." "Then why are your hands trembling?" She looked down and realized he was right. Later, after her shift ended, Laura didn't leave. She stayed in the room, alone beneath the cold white light. The walls felt like they were breathing with her. She took one of the report sheets from her drawer and began to write. "There's something I can't name. He listens to me like no one ever has, and I'm beginning to understand that the danger isn't him. It's what awakens in me." She folded the page, placed it in her bag, and walked out. Outside, the wind was strong, stirring dust across the yard. The guards shut the gate behind her. The sound of metal dragging felt longer than usual. In the car, she sat still for minutes. The rearview mirror reflected the lit tower. The prison, from that distance, looked like a living organism, pulsing, watching, calling. She knew she should run, transfer, cut ties, erase the trail. But the truth was, she no longer could. Because in silence, Daniel had become the only space where she could breathe. Winter came early that year. The prison corridors grew damp, the echo of guards' boots heavier against the cold floor. Laura noticed the season changed the men too. The cold made them shrink inward, their bodies and their eyes. But Daniel seemed untouched. His presence, steady and alert, stood in quiet contrast to the grey walls and the rigidity of those around him. In their sessions, the silence between them deepened, but it wasn't discomfort. It was intimacy, a kind of communication that no longer needed words. And when words did come, they arrived slowly, clearly, only to fill the space between one breath and the next. One morning, she sensed something was wrong. Daniel wasn't in the room. A guard informed her he had been placed in isolation. Disciplinary issues, they said. No detail, no explanation. Laura insisted, but the director was firm. Inmate Faria is no longer under your supervision. She felt the floor shift beneath her, but her expression remained composed. She simply nodded and left. In the car, her hands trembled, not from the separation itself, but from how sudden and unjustified it had been. All that remained was the void of an absence no one had announced. In the days that followed, she kept going to work as if nothing had changed. She met with other inmates, wrote her reports, followed procedure, but every action carried an absence. Everything she did felt hollow, without pulse. She knew what was happening. They had removed her from Daniel, not officially, but by design. A week later, a brown envelope appeared on her desk. No return address, no stamp. Inside, a single page, handwritten, in a script she would recognize anywhere. Not all silence is punishment. Sometimes it's the only way left to keep speaking. There was no signature, but the handwriting, the rhythm of the words, they were his. Laura read the note over and over until she had it memorized. She hid it inside a book tucked between pages like someone hiding evidence of a crime. That night, she didn't sleep. She began searching internal records for information about the transfer. Nothing. No system entry, no paperwork, as if Daniel had simply vanished. That's when she decided to step outside the rules. The next morning, she arrived before shift change. She spoke to the gatekeeper in her usual neutral tone and was granted access to the security wing. Inside, the halls were nearly empty. A stationed guard gave her a questioning look. "You shouldn't be here. I have authorization." A lie, delivered with the certainty of someone who believes it. She walked past him. In cell 3B, Daniel sat hunched forward, hands folded between his knees. A fresh cut marked his temple, thin, still healing. When he saw her, he didn't look surprised. "I didn't think you'd come. I didn't think they'd let me." For a moment, neither spoke. The distant jangle of keys down the corridor was the only sound. She approached the bars. "What happened?" "Nothing that doesn't happen every day." "That's not an answer." "I don't have a better one." Laura looked at him for a long time. There was no fear in his eyes, no anger, just something heavier. Acceptance. "You're hurt. I've been worse." She lowered her voice. "Why write to me?" "Because the silence outside is heavier than the silence in here." "Do you want me to get you out of this place?" "No. I just want you to keep listening." She took a deep breath. "They're going to remove me permanently." "They already have." "Then what's left?" "What we were never allowed to say." In the days that followed, Laura lived on the edge of dismissal. She was summoned for internal inquiries. They spoke of misconduct, of inappropriate closeness, of possible emotional vulnerability. Each word sounded like a sentence disguised as procedure. She didn't deny anything, signed the reports, answered calmly, no justifications. But when the director suggested she had been manipulated, she simply looked him in the eye. "Maybe you're just afraid of something you can't understand." And what would that be? That a man you all call a monster might be more human than any of us. The director looked away. The silence that followed felt like a verdict. That night, heavy rain fell. The sound against the window felt like it came from within. Laura sat in her office chair and began to write. Not reports, but thoughts. Words that could never be part of any official file. Among them, ethical boundaries aren't meant to protect others from us. They exist to protect us from feeling what we're not supposed to. She closed the notebook, turned off the lights, and let the rain be the only sound. Whatever came next would be consequence. 2 weeks later, she received a formal notice, temporary suspension, for conduct incompatible with the role. She didn't react, didn't request a hearing. She knew nothing would change the outcome. But inside, there was a calm certainty. She didn't regret it. What she had lived didn't belong in reports. It wasn't a mistake. It was the first truth she'd known in years. Still, an absence lingered. His voice, his words, the gaze that asked for nothing. She needed to see him one last time, not for clarity, but to exist, just once more, within whatever it was they'd shared. The next morning, she returned to the prison, without clearance. She used an administrative excuse and managed to get in as a visitor. Said she was delivering transition documents. The guards hesitated but let her through. In the empty room, she waited. When Daniel entered, his expression held both surprise and serenity. "I knew you'd come," he said. "So did I." "Then why?" "Because silence is worse when you're free." He watched her unmoving. "I warned you it would be too late." "I know." Time dissolved. Her breathing was audible, the air dense, nearly tangible. He stepped closer to the table. For the first time, the distance between them barely existed. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "I was never anywhere else." Daniel handed her something, a page, folded in half. "I wrote it for when I can't speak anymore." She took the paper, didn't open it. Their hands brushed, just briefly. It was the only touch, and it was enough to change everything. Winter lingered longer than expected. Weeks passed with no word from Daniel. Each morning, Laura woke to the same sound. The gate opening for the garbage collection, a metallic rattle that unintentionally echoed the sound of prison locks. Even outside, the noise remained inside her. The suspension had become official. "Indefinitely," said the documents. Words printed in ink felt far too cold for the weight they carried. No phone call, no explanation. She had simply ceased to exist within that system, as if the title had erased not just her function but her name. In the beginning, she tried to maintain appearances, woke at the same time, made coffee, read the news, wrote reports she would never turn in. But soon she realized nothing made sense outside the walls. Paradoxically, prison had become the only place where she felt alive, and the outside world seemed like a false set. Streets too clean, voices too loud, everything unreasonably free. On a still afternoon, she returned. She couldn't go in, but she could watch from a distance. She stood before the gate, watching the guards move. One recognized her and gave a subtle nod. She pretended not to see. The watchtower was the same static crackle from the radio. Inside, she knew time remained motionless, and Daniel, somewhere in that stillness, was still breathing. That thought alone was enough to keep her standing. That night, she opened the drawer where she had kept Daniel's letters. Read them one by one in silence. The pages were yellowed at the edges, some stained with dampness. She reread his words, this time from a distance that hurt. And then she saw something she hadn't noticed before. In each piece, Daniel spoke less of himself and more of her, as if little by little he had turned his confessions into a mirror. In the final note, the one he gave her before their last goodbye, there was only one paragraph. "When time erases my face, what remains will be the sound of the questions you never asked. The answers may have never been mine." She folded the paper again, slowly, and tucked it inside a dark-covered book, then sat still, watching the lamp's reflection on the desk. The silence weighed like a presence. Days later, the phone rang. It was the director, his voice bureaucratic, distant. Inmate Faria has been transferred to another facility. To where? I can't disclose that. Is he okay? A pause. He's alive. That's all I can say. She thanked him, hung up, and remained motionless. The news was everything, and nothing. Daniel had become a concrete absence, unreachable, and yet what remained of him was more real than anything else. That night, she began to write again. Not reports, not clinical notes, but something else, like breathing onto paper. The text began without a title. There are loves that aren't born from touch. They're born from recognition, and only become crimes because society doesn't know what to do with what it cannot understand. The words came slow, deliberate. She wrote them like someone saying goodbye softly. When she finished, she didn't cry. Her body, as always, resisted, but something inside her grew still. A quiet kind of surrender. The next morning, she went to the beach. The sky was grey, the sea still. The wind carried a salt that felt older than time. She walked along the damp sand, the cold biting at her feet. Inside her bag was the book with Daniel's final letter. She stopped at the water's edge and opened to the page where it was hidden, read it silently, then tore the page into small pieces and let them go into the wind. The fragments floated briefly, then fell into the sea. The ink dissolved quickly, becoming part of the water. Laura watched until the last piece disappeared, and for the first time in months, she took a deep breath. There was no redemption, no forgiveness, no promises, only the quiet awareness that something had happened. And that was enough. The rest was memory, and memory, she had learned, is not a prison. It is a form of permanence. Back at the apartment, the sound of the clock was the same as always, the steady, patient tick, indifferent to everything. She sat at the table and began a new report. At the top of the page, she wrote, Case 212B, final evaluation. But then she crossed it out, and in its place wrote only, Some prisoners don't want to escape. They just want to be seen. She placed a period, closed the notebook, and looked out the window. Morning was breaking slowly, with a pale light barely cutting through the glass. The world continued on, indifferent, as if nothing had happened, but inside her something had shifted, permanently. The kind of transformation no one sees from the outside. Quiet, unremarkable, but irreversible. Laura knew she would never return to that prison, and yet part of her would never leave it. The following years passed without a sound. No ruptures, no scandals, no return. Laura's life became a linear record, almost invisible, made of small gestures and long absences. She moved to a new city, opened a discreet office, specializing in patients with compulsive behavior. Her routine was simple: listen, write, stay silent. But inside her, the same silent current kept flowing, underground, untouched. Time, she discovered, doesn't heal. It only rearranges things differently. The memories stopped hurting, but they didn't disappear. They returned sometimes, not in images but in sensations. The sound of a turning key, the smell of damp paper, the tone of a voice that spoke slowly. She learned to live with that. It was the closest thing to peace she knew. Now one afternoon, leaving her office, she found an envelope on the floor by the door. No sender, no stamp. The handwriting on the front was strangely familiar, firm, slanted, restrained. She opened it right there in the hallway. Penal Institute of Santana, notice of death. Inmate, Daniel Faria. Cause, cardiac arrest. Date, September 11th. No other details. No personal signature. Only the cold seal of the institution. Laura read the paper several times until the words started losing meaning. Cardiac arrest sounded like irony. A heart stopping didn't just mean the end of a body, but the end of everything that had endured without space to exist. She put the notice in her bag and walked to the cafe on the corner. ordered a glass of water, sat at the back table. People were talking, street sounds flowed in through the windows, but she heard nothing. Her mind filled with silence. There was no pain, just an old clarity. Daniel had always belonged to the realm of the unspoken. Even in death, he remained exactly where he had always been, in the space between what is felt and what can be admitted. That night, it rained. The kind of rain that falls with no wind, no rush, as if the sky remembered something forgotten. Laura opened the window and let the cold air in. She took the book where she had kept Daniel's writings, all except the last one, dissolved into the sea. Open to the first page, the paper carried the scent of time. She read the passage that had stayed with her through the years. What imprisons us are not the bars, but the gaze of those who believe themselves free. She closed the book gently and placed it on the table beside the lamp. Then she opened a new notebook. At the top she wrote, "Final report. Personal." The words came slowly, as they always had. "I spent half my life listening to others, the other half trying to hear myself without judgment. I've learned that the line between the criminal and the innocent is too thin, that sometimes loving what the world despises is the only way to remain human. I never saved him. And maybe he never tried to be saved, but there was between us a single moment when nothing separated us. That moment was worth more than all the codes of conduct I ever followed." She closed the notebook. The ticking of the clock marked each second like falling drops. Outside, the rain continued. No memories returned, only the certainty that everything was in place, even the things lost. For a few months later, Laura visited a small contemporary art exhibit in the city. It wasn't something she usually did, but a former patient had left her an invitation. Among the artworks, one painting caught her attention. A nearly blank canvas, just faint strokes in shades of grey and white. In the lower corner, a handwritten phrase, "Not all silence is punishment." She recognized it instantly, the phrase from the first note. The handwriting was identical to Daniel's. She asked the curator about the artwork's origin. "Anonymous donation," the woman replied. "It was delivered a few months ago. No one knows who sent it." Laura stood in front of the canvas for a long time. People passed by, the sounds around her faded. She didn't know if it was a coincidence, a copy, or if somehow he had left something to be found. But she understood it didn't matter. The meaning wasn't in the proof. It was in the echo. Everything he had been was still there, in what could not be explained. She left the gallery without looking back, walked slowly through the streets, in no rush to arrive. The cold wind touched her face, and for the first time in a long while, she felt fully present in her body. Back in her apartment, the book still lay on the table. She opened the window and let the air in. The clock read 10:15 p.m. The ticking sounded the same, but now it felt different, as if time had changed pace. Laura sat down and wrote the last line of the report. "I loved him without being able to say it, and maybe that was the most honest thing I ever did." She closed the notebook, turned off the light. Silence filled the room again, calm, whole, unbroken. A silence that didn't punish, only remained. Outside, the city breathed, and inside her, for the first time, everything felt free. And that's how Laura's story ended. No redemption, no scandal, no noise, just the echo of what was felt, even when it couldn't be spoken. Now it's your turn. Where are you watching this story from? I want to know from what part of the world you hear this silence with me. From what corner of the map love and the abyss reached you. Tell me, where did this echo land in you?